here's a cool little technique that you can use to do that. So I'm going to select the TV, I'm going to say attach, and grab the foot. Then I'm going to take the foot, select by element, and say detach. Why? So that the foot has now inherited the pivot point of the TV. So now what I can do is I can go up here to my Modify tab, and for some reason Max is taking a really long time to think right now, and I'm not sure what's going on, if it's thinking about crashing or what, but it seems to be hanging up. Alright, in any case, it didn't crash on me. It just took a little while to think. So I'm looking for this modifier called symmetry. What that'll do is it'll mirror the foot across the pivot point. So it mirrors it over to the other side. Now what I can do is I can go ahead and apply a second symmetry modifier, but I can change the axis for the mirror. I can switch it to Y and then hit flip, and now it'll mirror it again. So now I just put all 4 of those feet into position by doing that simple operation. Now all I can do is I can just grab the TV and attach the feet to the TV. Done. Now, to save some time here, I'm just going to grab one of these feet. I'm going to go to my left view. I'm going to shift drag a copy, and then I'm going to use my rotate tool and rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm actually going to use that foot as the geometry for one of these buttons. And I'll just scale it downwards a little bit, so it's not the exact same size as the foot. And then I'm just going to shift drag a copy over. And those are sticking out just a little bit too much for my liking, so I'll pull them inwards. And I think those are done. So last but not least, the antennae. So let's look at the back of the TV here. The first thing I can notice is I have a lot of unnecessary geometry back here. So I'm just going to want to get rid of a lot of that before I start doing anything else. So I'll just remove all those edges. And I'll control select these vertices here. Remove those. And let's see. Lastly, I can try to target weld some of these loops away because I won't be using them for anything. Just try to target weld all of these loops towards the center here. Now the reason I'm keeping these center lines in is I may, if it came down to UVing it, it might be worth it to save some texture space, to get some texture quality, to only do a half or even a quarter of the back of the TV in texture, because you won't see it in the game as much. You probably won't see the back of the TV. The front is the area of interest. So what I could do is I could actually use these mirror lines or symmetry lines, and I could just paint a quarter of the texture and then drop the other UVs on top of it, and save a heck of a lot of UV space that I wouldn't want to waste on the back of this TV, but at the same time still keep the pixel depth the same for everything. So that's just a really good way to do that. And I find that most of the time in game engines, textures are a lot more costly than polygons, relatively speaking. So to leave a symmetry line in is not that expensive compared to 4 times the texture space wasted. So that's why I would go ahead and do that. Anyways, so now let's flip around to the back of the TV. I'm going to want something for those antennas to attach to. So I'm just going to draw a box, take my Creation tab, Standard Primitive, and just draw a box. And then I'm going to drag it into position, convert to editable poly, delete the back face, and then just going to try to give it some shape here, so it's not exactly just a box. Alright, that looks okay to me. Not in love with the position yet. And I think the size could be a little bit not in love with the position yet. And I think the size could be a little bit bigger. And then what I'm going to want to do is I just want to round these edges. So I'm just going to select every single edge here, and then I'm going to hit chamfer. Just make it a little bit round. And then I'm just going to smooth it. Okay. Now we can attach that to the TiVi. And last but not least, the antenna. Grab a cylinder, draw it out, move it up into position, convert to editable poly, delete the bottom face, and then drag the antenna out to an appropriate length. Right click on the scale tool and scale those vertices in. Oh, pardon me. Also, I made this cylinder 8-sided, which is totally not necessary. I got ahead of myself. It's a really small, thin object. So you just really need some 3D form to it. It doesn't have to have that many sides. So I'm just going to remove half of them, turn it into a 4-sided object. That's better. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift drag a copy, but this time I'm going to copy it as a copy. And then I'm just going to rotate it out and just bring up my concept there. See if I can get the angle similar. Yeah, that looks good to me. So now I'm just going to attach those antennae. I'm just looking at the side view of the TiVi now. The whole thing looks kind of fat now that I've added in some more of these details. So I'm just going to grab this whole back section here. Turn off ignore back facing. Grab the whole back section and just pull it inwards a little bit. Try to make it look less chunky. And lastly, these antennae are too straight. So I'm just going to ring connect. 1, not 20. And then I'm just going to pull that. Try to make the antenna look like it's kind of a little bit bent or whatever. And that should do it. So now I'm just going to really quickly, because I always like to do this when I'm done with the model, just going to really quickly pull up my statistics here. If I can get it to show me the statistics. There we go. And then I'm just going to configure them to see what my triangle count is. So configure statistics, total plus selection. So right now the poly count is around 1,736 triangles. There's a lot of places I can optimize here. I haven't gone around and properly triangulated things off, or optimized any unneeded polygons, deleted back faces of, or bottom faces of the TV if you're not going to see that. If this were a true in-game model, I could probably pull out a few of these loops, or omit some of the details I added in the button panel. Actually, a lot of them. So realistically, this model could be brought down to, even several hundred polygons, maybe 500 or 600 polygons, rather than 1,700. This model is more somewhere in between a high and a low poly. But I think it served its purpose really well to demonstrate the polygonal modeling tools under the Modify tab of the Editable Poly, and also the Symmetry modifier, which is quite possibly one of my favorite modifiers and my best friend. So this has been Caleb Aylesworth for CG Tuts, showing you 3D Studio Max poly modeling introduction. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more.